Hello, party people. Welcome to week 3 of recipes you can actually use, I hope, this cooking series. Today we're going to make a curry chicken pot pie pocket. So that's curry chicken pot pie pocket. These are fairly simple, and the great thing is if you make double, they freeze really well. So these are a good, quick pop out of the freezer into the oven, warm up type of vibe. Okay, so let's go over our ingredient list for this recipe. Curry powder. This is West Indian curry powder. I'm sure this would probably be good with like Thai curry or any other type of curry. And then we have parsley. This is fresh parsley. You could use dried parsley. You could leave out the parsley. This is dried thyme. You could use fresh herbs, dried herbs, or an Italian herb blend would also be good. And then we have 1 rib of chopped celery. This is about 3 cloves of chopped garlic. This is a small whole onion chopped. And then back here I have a chopped parsnips and sweet potatoes. Now I'm using parsnips and sweet potatoes because this is what I got in Odd Bunch. You can use carrots, you can use regular potatoes. Most root vegetables would work here. And you need about 2 cups of them. Then we need coconut milk. And the last ingredient that I really like is these are frozen peas, and we're going to add these to the end because we don't want them to overcook. Frozen peas are actually better than fresh peas because, well, you're not going to find them, first of all, that often. The season for them is really short. And the last ingredient we need is chicken thighs. This is about 1.5 pounds of chicken thighs. These are used boneless, and then you can skip the step of needing to take the bone out. This has salt, it has pepper, it has cumin and paprika, and that's all we're going to put on here. And then right before I put it in the pan, I'm just going to dust it with a little bit of flour. And this will just help thicken. If this was a pot pie where I was just putting this in a dish and putting the pastry on top, I would not bother necessarily with this step. But because we are making this into a pocket, we want a filling that is a little bit thicker. Okay, so we have this pot going, and I'm going to spray this lightly. This is with grapeseed oil, but you could use any kind of neutral oil. You could even use olive oil because even though it has a low smoke point, the chicken won't be in here very long. We're just trying to brown that flour on it a little bit. So you add it to the bottom, and then we're going to add all the pieces in here and just let it brown. Okay, so that's all brown, and we're going to turn. Okay, so everything's brown on one side. We're going to turn it over, brown the other side. Now we're going to take the chicken out, and I'm just going to put it back on the same plate that it was on. Because we're going to cook it, it's fine that it sits here. So now we are going to add in the onions and the sweet potatoes and the parsnips, and then we'll add in the celery last. Can easily burn, and then pretty much your dish is done for after that, because burnt garlic taste will just go over your whole dish. And that's what we're trying to do here. I decided to do these pockets because I thought they would be fun, and that kids would have fun eating them. I was going to make these for tomorrow because Okay, now we're going to, this pan is on medium low. I'm going to season it. You want to season at every step of what you're doing. You actually do want to season, and you can always adjust later. I'm going to add in our 3 teaspoons of curry powder. And when you're working with things like curry powder specifically, and chili powder and all of those, you want to bloom them, meaning not just dump them into the cold liquid, right? So this is going to heat up, and that's going to help the oils come back to life and wake up the flavor of what you're making. Add the chicken back, not chicken backs, but add the chicken back in, right on top of the vegetables. Oops, dump that in. And of course, this chicken is not really cooked. And then we're going to pour in chicken stock until it just about covers the vegetables. Then we're going to put a cover on this and let this cook until the chicken is tender and ready to shred. Okay, so it's been maybe about 15 minutes and the chicken is pretty tender and you'll see the sauce is thick. I'm going to take, oops, it's fogging up, it's steaming up. Oh boy. We are going to add in about half of this coconut milk. Maybe not half. Maybe like a third of a cup of the coconut milk. And this is when you're going to adjust for seasoning. So you want to taste it at this point, salt, pepper, herbs. If you want it spicy, you could add some bird pepper or some goat pepper. If you're in the Bahamas, if you're not, that's like, what is the equivalent? Maybe like a Thai chili. You could even put in a jalapeno. That's not going to give you much heat, but you could put that in for a little teensy bit of kick or some cayenne. Now we are going to add back the shredded chicken and then we're going to turn off the heat and we're going to add in the chopped fresh parsley. The fresh herbs you want to add at the end. If it was dried, you could add it during, but the fresh herbs you want to add at the end. And then we're going to add in our frozen peas and this will help cool this down anyway because because we have to put this in a pastry, we do not want this to be hot. So this needs to now reduce heat to room temperature. And then while this is cooling down, we're going to make our dough. Okay, so the filling for the pot pie is cooling down. And now we're going to make the dough. I'm going to make this in the food processor. If you don't have time, don't have the inclination, don't have F's to give, you can use puff pastry dough from the freezer. If you don't want to go through this, but it's pretty simple, especially if you have a food processor, and you will see why when I show you what I'm doing. So in this food processor, I have 3 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. You can use whole wheat flour. You could use some spelt flour as well. And this has the plastic dough blade in here. I probably should show you, but you can use, the regular blade. This is, oh, no. We want to add our baking powder next. Leavening, very important here. And this is a yogurt dough. I'm adding it. It's really light. It adds a lot of flakiness and it also adds some protein. So we're going to add 3 teaspoons of all-purpose flour. Okay. And then we're going to use a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Scant teaspoon of salt. I'm using salted butter and salt. And as you know, my philosophy is salted butter always. I don't even buy unsalted butter. Ingredients. We have an egg. We have yogurt. This is plain thick yogurt, not Greek, but thick enough to be Greek. So if you only have plain regular yogurt that's a little bit wetter, then leave out the water until you figure out how the water is gonna do the dough. Okay, so next we're gonna add in this. Well, you know what? Let's pulse this a couple times just to mix up we're just gonna mix up the dry ingredients. Okay, that's good. And then this is cold butter. It's cubed, and You want it to be cold. You could also grate this, but because I was using the food processor and it would get minced up anyway, I didn't bother. And then we're going to pulse this again. And we're looking for the dough to be kind of like thin little pieces. Doughs like these, as with like biscuits, the butter is doing part of the leavening, part of the flakiness. So the butter has moisture in it and that's going to evaporate. So you don't want it to be totally obliterated so it completely coats the flour. You want little tiny chunks of butter in there. Okay, now we are going to add, I'm going to add in the egg to this yogurt. Oops. Get a little kid spoon. And then we're going to add that in here. And we're not looking to overmix this. So we want to mix everything in. And then as soon as it becomes a ball, we want to turn it off, and take it out. Oops. And then go. I'm going to show you what's going on in here. It is starting to clump together. So I'm going to take the top off here. And then I'm going to start adding water by the tablespoon. I'm going to add 2-3 tablespoons. And like I said, if you're using a more watery yogurt, you want to add this water carefully. So I'm going to start with 3 one side. We're going to turn it out. Okay, so I have you could just do this on the counter or you could do this with parchment. But this is a silicone mat, a good bit of flour. So we're going to dump this out to overwork this dough. Right? We took it out as soon as it came together, and now we're going to mess with it as little as possible. Just in a loose rectangle like that. And then I'm going to get a sheet of, am I going to get a sheet of parchment? No. So I'm going to roll this out with some flour on top until it's about an 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick. Covering the whole sheet. It's in a loose rectangle. I would say a messy rectangle. And I am going to take a tea towel, a moist one, or you could use a piece of plastic wrap and cover this, because this is for 2 reasons. One, we want to let it rest a little bit. Whenever you work with flour, even though we haven't worked with this a lot, we still worked with it, and that can introduce toughness. And so you want to let the structures relax, right? The gluten relax in the dough. And then the other reason is because the filling is still a little bit too warm. I wanted to cool down to room temperature, and so this will rest a little bit. All right, so everything's cool. We're going to take this out, and then we want to have kind of, I'm gonna trim this up just to make it an even rectangle. We're going to, if you didn't feel like making this into a pocket, you could just pour that filling into a dish and then put this whole sheet on top and bake it like that. And that you'll just have a regular curry chicken pot pie, which is also very good. Down like this. You should get about 4 large size pies. Square cutter, so you could make smaller. Okay, so there we go with that. So that we have that across like that. There we go. So that we could fill it right on the parchment sheet. Okay, so we have here, I made 3 small ones so we could see the difference for the kids also, and then 3 bigger ones. So we're going to add in, this is the cooled filling, and we're going to add in, you wanted to have a good amount of filling without being completely kind of over. So piled up in the middle there. And then you're going to put the top on. It's okay if a little bit spills over the side. And once you have that closed relatively, we are going to use a fork and crimp the side to really seal it. Right? And then you want to poke a slit. This is to let the steam out, right? Right in the top. Okay, we've got our 6 puffs here. And I had some extra, a good bit of extra. So I just tore up the remaining dough, put the remaining filling, and this will be a little mini pot pie. Tyson can take this for lunch. To 400 degrees. And while it's preheating, I'm going to just stick this whole tray in the freezer because we want to keep the butter cold. Okay, one last step before we pop this in the oven. We're going to, this is heavy cream. You could use an egg wash. You could use some more of the coconut milk. This is just going to increase the browning on the top. So I'm just going to brush this on here. And then we are going to bake this at 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. If you wanted to make these vegan completely, obviously you would skip the skip this heavy cream part and either use the coconut milk or leave it out altogether. And for the dough, you would use a flax egg. You could, and vegan butter. And for the inside, I would use shredded up king oyster mushrooms because they have, they're easily shreddable and they have a lot of meaty texture. But you could also use tempeh or tofu. This would actually be a really fun one to make vegan, and it definitely wouldn't be missing anything. Okay, so everything's all done here. These are the big ones that lets the split out. It's nice and golden brown on the top, and it's very like a biscuity texture. Let's pop one open.